G'day and welcome back to the latest episode of working on the Black Mosquito. On this episode, we are installing the wiper motor assembly and finishing off the wiring so we can finally turn the key, start testing every circuit and spending the next 3 months working out all the problems. So folks, welcome back. Like I said, we are going to be installing the wiper motor assembly on the Black Mosquito. Now, this was one of the things that was holding us up to be able to keep moving forward with all the wiring. Essentially, we need to mount this to make sure that we can connect up the harness for the wiper motor itself and then continue on with all of the wiring down in the front of the car. Now, another problem we did run into also, which I'll show you guys in just 1 second, is the side repeaters or the indicators. Essentially, I bought these from Minisport in the UK. Now, there is a significant difference between these and the ones that are fitted to the vehicle or originally were fitted to the vehicle. These are just little rectangular ones. They just push in. There's 2 little release clips. You just squeeze one and out it pops. Now, I'll grab the camera and show you guys essentially what I'm talking about, but I'd wired it up to suit the vehicle, and unfortunately it wasn't actually going to work. So let's just come down around here and have a bit of a look. So this is the hole, or the opening should I say, just down here. Let me just grab the camera so you guys can see. See that opening there? It might not be a very good picture. Let me just grab the light. You guys should be able to see it a bit better. There we go. See how that opening is like a bit ovaled? Probably can't really see too well. But anyway, it's not this same style. So that's the new LED indicator globe that we thought would run. So you put that inside there, and unfortunately, it does not fit. It is massively, massively too small. So we need to work out exactly what it is that we need to do moving forward to be able to get this to fit that hole. But more importantly, why is this wrong? I'd probably already post this on my social media, and because I'm so far ahead with all my videos, you're probably gonna have to go back through my stories and find out exactly what the answer was. But we're gonna work this out in this episode. So let's get onto it. Let's mount the wiper motor and get cracking. Right, so it wasn't imperative that we jacked up the vehicle to get it to this stage for us to be able to work on it. But as you know, working on a classic Mini can be quite challenging when it comes to having to lean over and destroy your lower spine. So we've made it a little bit easier and we've jacked it up, and now it's at a comfortable working height, and it's something you really need to consider, that when you're working on vehicles, doesn't matter how high it is, how low it is, always bring it to a comfortable level. So that's Tomo's tech tip. Now let's go to our bag of goodies at the back here and see what it is that we have. I've literally just got bags upon bags, and I don't mean cocaine, I mean literal bags of parts in a bag at the back here. So essentially we've got a couple of different things that we're going to be doing. The customer did say he's got a new strap for it, but I haven't been able to see it in all of his parts, so hopefully I can find a bit later on. I just went and ordered a bunch of different components to suit it, so hopefully we should be right with everything that I've got here. So there are a couple of different types of setups that you can run in terms of mounting your wipers. So I think I grabbed 2 different kits just to make sure. Sorry, I'm not in the camera. 2 different kits because I wasn't sure which one was going to suit. There's an 8-sided nut and there is a 6-sided nut. I think the 6-sided nut probably looks better, and that's probably the one we'll go with. That's just this one here. And we do have the rubbers as well. So there are 2 rubbers that mount it on the bottom and then on the top as well through the scuttle panel. Now it's interesting that these actually have 4 holes. I'm not entirely sure why. I looked at some original photos. I'll try and remember to put it up on the side here. But one of them is a blanking plug. Why it's got 4 holes, I've got no idea. Anyone in the comment section down below can please let me know. I'd really like to know. It doesn't really do anything other than just sit there That's it. That doesn't have any functional purpose. It's not like it's running twin wiper blades, one pair on either side, and then that's it. It's there. Maybe for left or right hand drive cars, but it still doesn't make sense. Anyway, let's get to it. Let's mount these rubbers and I'll show you guys how to do it. All right, so there's a couple of components to this that we're going to be using. The first one is this rubber block here. And before we start, imperative, because it is a freshly painted car, we want to make sure that we use a guard cover. So this rubber block goes between the wiper motor itself and the body of the vehicle, just to prevent any sort of rattling or any sort of movement there and help insulate that a little bit. So that's the first thing that's going to sit directly under the wiper motor itself. Now we're going to grab the wiper motor assembly, which is just over here. And then, as I was saying, there are a couple of different types of rubbers that you can buy. Essentially, we bought the standard ones to begin with. If we need to swap them over down the track, we certainly can. But at this stage, we should just be able to at least mount the bottom half and then figure out which are the top ones that we need to mount it up the top of the scuttle panel. So I remember when I did this with Grace years and years and years ago, I could not get this off. So I thought it was a great idea to get an angle grinder and cut it off, which I did, and then I needed new wiper boxes, which was not a cheap thing to do. So I definitely regret doing that. Now these have a locator on them as well, on the rubbers. So it's interesting to see that, because I don't think I've seen it before, where it actually locates on here. Maybe it's for the top, I'm not entirely sure. Okay. Now they do have a large and a small rubber as well. The large rubber, I believe, goes on the top. The smaller rubber goes on the bottom. So they come as a kit. So you get, you need to buy 2 kits when you do it. And that one just slides, that one slides on there like that. And then you just have to tilt it or twist it to suit the angle that you need for it. And then it will just find its sort of natural home. So we're gonna fit those at the bottom, essentially just like that. And then when we slide it in, it's gonna sit up on an angle. That's actually, yep, that's upside down. That should go something along those lines. That way it will sit in there where it needs to be. I think it's that way. I always get these confused. I had it right to begin with. Yeah, I did. So it'll sit backwards like that. And that way when it goes up in there, this piece will sit directly on top, and that's what allows it to centralize it. And then you have the nut that goes over the top. So we'll grab the other kit. These are a part available from Minisport. You can buy them. The part number is 37 Hotel 7201 Mike Sierra. Wiper Wheelbox Bush Kit. These are, yeah, so it says Mark III Kit Inner. So because they're both the same, I'm going to say pretty safely that the larger one goes on top, like I just said before, and the smaller one goes on the inside. These are a really cheap and affordable thing that you can just replace at any sort of time, but you just have to make sure that you've got the time available to be able to replace them and fit them, because it can be quite fiddly, especially when you're doing it in the car with the bonnet on there as well. This is where the fun bit begins. You've got to get this down up under here, underneath all of the wiring. So I might just pull it down up under there. And not having pulled this apart as well, it is hard to determine where exactly this needs to go and how it sits. Most cars are pretty well the same, but you'll probably find the time that you think, she'll be right, that's where it sits. It's probably gonna be the time you're gonna be wrong. Well, and now I'll just drop that, great. All right, so this is gonna sit here. We're just gonna take this out of here. That's just protecting that. You're gonna see that underneath the bottom of the wiper motor assembly, because we need to grab that rubber block, which is actually just sitting up under there. So that pretty much just follows the contour of the wiper motor itself, so it just sits on there just like that. We need to figure out whereabouts it's going to sit and where the wiper wheel box is. At the moment, one is sitting here, so it does need to come back quite a lot from what I can see. The question is, well, where and how does the wiper motor assembly sit on this assembly? Right, so I've just temporarily fitted one of the earlier style fittings. I'm pretty sure that's twisted actually. On this side, and we've got the standard rubber one on this side. It does look much better with these, so I'm just going to temporarily fit it to either side and then just see what the customer says. I'll send him a photo and see if he likes it. If not, we can just swap it over. But the rubbers do need to compress a bit as well on both the top and the bottom. So you just have to make sure that you compress it enough so that way you'll be able to get the nut on the top. Otherwise you will sit there for so long trying to just get it started. And if you don't get it started, you're gonna have a bad time. These also do have a rubber gasket that go between the chrome housing and the body, obviously to stop the chrome housing rubbing on the body. So make sure you run that. These do have an 8-sided nut as well with the earlier style. So we're gonna just swap it over and we're gonna go with the 6-sided nut just because it's more modern, and unless you've got a octagonal socket available to you, you're probably never going to, unless you have a shifter, and then you run the risk that you're going to damage it. It just becomes an absolute nightmare. So you're better off, in my opinion, just running it with a 6-sided nut. And these you just have to finesse a little bit to be able to get it down in there far enough, so that way you can start the nut correctly and on the right angle, because failure to do so is only a fine thread, so you are going to damage it quite easily if you don't have it lined up 100% to begin with. So yeah, it's just going to take a little bit of fiddling. I'll keep going with this, and then we should be able to keep wiring in the wiper motor assembly itself. That way we can actually just test it. We're not going to put any wipers on this at the moment, obviously, because there's no windscreen in there, but we do just need to make sure that everything works. So my point here is that we just have to, is that on? No, I don't think that is. We just have to make sure that the wiper motor works when we hit the switch. That way we can ensure that we've got it all wired in properly, and if it doesn't, then we can just trace it back with everything pulled apart. All right, so grab yourself a 13/16 socket. We're just going to be nipping these up a little bit. Hopefully we got it on the right angle. Yeah, that looks pretty good. The one thing that bothers me about this style is that the nut rubs directly on the top of the housing here, so there's nothing actually cushioning it, so it's going to scratch it regardless of what you do, unless you can find a really thin washer to go between there, which, you know, maybe someone else out there has a better idea. If anyone out there wanting to know, I don't think I've spoken about this yet, but that is actually a Jet Motors turbo kit that we have on the Black Mozzie engine. So this was one of their first generations, and anyone that's followed Jet Motors before will know that they've done a couple of reiterations of their turbo kits and know that they have changed over the years. So this was, I think, like their first kit that they've done. So a bit of a guinea pig, I guess, in a way, that, you know, we're not sure how it's going to work. It's got some really cool intricate stuff in there. The only thing I've found on cylinder number 4 is where, just going to get off topic here, where the exhaust comes out, it actually cuts back on a pretty severe angle like that. So instead of it coming out and then the exhaust gas flowing around, it has to almost do like a 45. It bounces and then pushes it back into the turbo and then goes out. Look, it is what it is. There's nothing you can really do about that. However, it probably could have been manufactured a bit better, I guess. That's just my opinion. Anyone else that runs one of these on their cars, please let me know. I'd love to know what people think and do with their cars and how this setup goes, what sort of setup you're running, all that sort of jazz. But yeah, leave it in the comment section below if you have one of these Jet Motor turbo kits on your vehicle. All right, so that's the new strap. Essentially, we're just running with a chrome strap. It does have a little bit of the blue tape on there that fridges and freezers and stuff do have on there. We're just gonna leave that for now. You just have to make sure that you fit the rubber to there, otherwise it's gonna vibrate. So the rubber block goes on the base of the wiper motor assembly itself, and then it goes, as I said, between the the wiper motor and the firewall. Now I've got a couple of push button plugs in here, which I'm just going to stick a screw in here. I'm hoping that I can just run a Phillips head screw down through here to secure it. With grace, I do run a bolt in there. I don't think this is going to work because the square that I'm using is way too small, so it's not even going to work. That's super frustrating. So if that's the case, we'll just run a bolt through the firewall. I'll see if I can just grab a camera and show you guys what I'm actually up to. Right, so essentially I was trying to fit that plug inside this hole just here, but as I put it in, it was then just twisting. So I'm probably gonna have to use some 5/16 bolts to go through here and just put a washer on the backside, just pull it up with a nut to secure it. At the moment, like, it's not really gonna matter too much. We can probably just leave it like this. There's no real drama at the moment of just kind of sitting around there like that, but we don't really want it flopping around. Especially when the wiper motor kicks, you'll probably find it'll start to jolt around. So it's worthwhile just putting it in and then at least just nipping it up enough so that way it will properly seat where it needs to, but also that's a rubber block as well that just sits between there and the body. Right, so I'm just going to feed some bolts through these holes. Take this grommet out of here because that one's definitely not going to work like we found out before. Alright, so we're just going to feed a couple of M6 bolts through the bracket with a washer on either end, and then just do another washer on the other side, and then just tighten it down to compress it and hold it in place to where it needs to be, so we don't have it bouncing around the shop. It's worthwhile noting as well, just do one of these bolts at a time when you go to put them in. That way you can ensure that you get it in there and you don't sit here for 25 minutes trying to do it in the dark. It actually makes me wonder about this because these bolts are fairly long and it's only just going through. Makes me think that maybe it doesn't need the bracket underneath, sorry, the rubber piece between it, but I guess we will find out. So when having my mate Kev around would certainly help the process, because you can only do so much sometimes by yourself, especially when you're on your toes trying to put bolts in that you can't see. All right, so got it. They are all in. Essentially, I'm just going to tighten these up now. We're going to grab the wiring harness. So this isn't it, because this is the harness that goes to this one. That's not the one we need. The one we need for the wiper motor, I believe, is, yep, that one there. So I'm just going to plug that in down behind the wiper motor. That'll only go one way, I believe. Yep, that is correct. 5-pin terminal. Fabulous, that's on there. All right, I'm going to tighten up these bolts. We're going to connect these wires. That's just for the washer pump, I believe, which I think it sits around here somewhere. This did have like a little bag style washer bottle. So it'd be interesting to see if we're going to run with that setup or if we're going to run with the standard style over there. Cool. Well, I'll get on to doing that. There's no point in me showing you how to connect these because it's literally a male and female. Connect it, away we go. I think we're pretty much on track. And then we'll keep moving on to the rest of the wiring at the front of the vehicle. All right, so we're back working on the front of the car. Essentially at the moment, what I'm up to is trying to work out where all these wires go. I do have a workshop manual, and a couple of people from my social media have actually reached out and sent me some electronic copies. So I'm just trying to cross-reference both of them, both on my phone and the old workshop manual. Essentially, I'm trying to work out which is the indicator circuit and which is the park light circuit. Now, this is really weirdly wired. The reason I say that is on one side we have, let's move this out of the way, 4 wires. 2 of them are the same, and then the other two are the same. So we have two black wires and we have two green wires with a white trace. However, they are fitted to one side of the vehicle. From what I can see here, it should be green, white, should be the indicator and or park light. So this setup just here. Essentially, I'm just keeping that in the plastic to protect it. We are using the plastic housing as well, not the glass one. So this is fitted to one side, which I'd imagine probably goes to one side of the vehicle, for instance, the driver's side, and then the other side is going to run all the way over to this side. The silly thing about this is if that is where it goes, instead of extending this wire all the way over here and having it running out, I then have to run it myself, which means instead of it being part of the loom, it's going to be an extra set of wires, which is really quite frustrating. Then on the opposite side, so the passenger side, we have the same thing. We have 4 wires, and obviously 2 sets of wires, should I say. Both wires are the same, so we have 2 black ones and 2 green ones with a red trace. From what I can see here, it should be with a red trace. Yeah, so for the park light and or side lamp, so, or the indicator, should I say. So there's 2 different circuits, but with these, I only want to run the park lights off there and then run the indicators off the other one. So I need to work out, and this is where it becomes confusing and, well, I guess confusing in a way, but it also becomes a little frustrating that you have to kind of backtrack back and forth. So essentially what I'm going to do here is on one side, I'm going to connect up the wires to this circuit. And then on the other side, I'm going to connect up the same park light assembly to the other circuit. That way when I turn the indicators on, I can work out which one is flashing. So if it'd be the left one or the right one, and then when I turn the park lights on, which circuit is going to be the park light circuit. Once I've determined that, I can then extend the wiring to suit, and then I can judge it accordingly. So like I said, essentially the indicators are only going to be on the quarter panels, so the front repeaters, and then the front one is only going to be the park light, and then obviously we have the headlight in there. So these are the sort of things that can become very confusing very quickly. This is when having a workshop manual or even people online to help you will help nut this out and get it to where it needs to be. Essentially, I'm just going to do it like this. I'm going to do the same with the headlights. I'm going to run one headlight, connect up the wiring, see where it goes, and then determine how I'm going to do it. Now, the silly thing about this headlight wiring is as well, same thing. Again, we have 3 wires, a black, blue with a white trace, and then a blue with a red trace. There's only 3 wires. Instead of it coming out 3 wires one side, 3 wires the other side, we have to go 3 into 6, which again is going to be frustrating. So I need to determine what I need to do there is if I need to splice into those wires. So we have 1 into 2, so we make a wire joiner, and then we just go with a Deutsch connector. That way we have 2 Deutsch connectors coming off, and it's pretty much just piggybacked. There's no reason why we can't have it piggybacked, and then it just spreads off to either side. But those extra things are just a little bit frustrating, that if you've gone and paid all this money for a new harness, they've done, as far as I can see, and I don't mean to offend anyone, but half a job here, literally. That we now have to run extended wires left and right, back and forth, to make sure that everything works on either side. So I'm going to keep going with this. There is quite a few things left for me to do. Essentially, I do need to mount the wiper motor, which I'll do in a minute, or at least in the next episode. And then we can continue forth, which actually, you know what, the episode is probably getting a bit long on this. It has taken me quite some time in terms of hours to get to where I am to be at the moment. So I'm actually going to cut it there. Next episode, we're going to mount the wiper motor. I'm going to show you guys the way in which you need to mount it, connect up all that, and then just start connecting everything, just to make sure that we can kind of get some sort of understanding as to how this needs to be wired. And then hopefully next episode, fingers crossed, I'll get a battery, I'll get an earth cable, we'll turn the key. By turning the key, excuse me, I mean that we will turn the ignition on, and then we're going to start testing everything. So we need to make sure that everything's working. Whatever isn't, we now need to get to the bottom of it. So that's when it's important and just getting back off track again, it's important to ensure that when you're testing this stuff, you just do one circuit at a time. It's good to go, oh sweet, you know, I turned it on, it all works, excellent, or no, it doesn't, and then looking at it as a big whole picture. But it's important to cut it down and just focus on one circuit at a time. For instance, the park lights. You switch the park lights on, front park lights don't come on, the rears come on. But instead of the rears, it is actually the brake lights that come on. And when you put the brake lights on, it then turns off the tail lights, for instance, sorry, turns off the brake lights and turns on the tail lights. So you can kind of work out the circuits individually as they go, but don't look at it as a whole picture. Just itemize it down to one circuit and then work on that circuit. Once you've done that, move on to the next one. So work from parkers through to low beam, through to high beam, through to the horn, through the indicators, the left, the right, to the front, to the rear work. These are all the sort of things that you really have to nut out, and it takes a lot of time to do. So don't ever be afraid to just spend hours, whether it be reading diagrams, whether it be speaking to people online, messaging me or other people and asking for help. Because there's no point in not asking for help, otherwise it will just take you longer. Even if you have some idea, it's always good to ask for help. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm sorry that there was a lot of ins and outs and time lapses. It just is very time consuming doing this. And we are working through. I've now done probably close to a dozen episodes by the time this is filmed, and we're still not anywhere near completion. So thanks for watching. I am also wearing my Minisport shirt, so if you haven't already, make sure you check it out at minisport.com.au. Get yourself some merchandise. I also do have some merchandise available in which they are selling for me, and new stickers available at $5 each. So if you want to get in contact, please reach out to Minisport or reach out to me via Instagram and send me a DM. Thanks for watching. Stay COVID safe as always, and we'll see you on the next episode of Tomo's Tune-Ups.